Fia the Deathbed Companion is one of the more questionable characters in Elden Ring. Blatant necrophilia and life-draining hugs aside, many Tarnished are apprehensive to bother with her quest as it intertwines with so many other quest lines. But if you choose to be held in between the carnage you weave, you'll be rewarded with not only some interesting loot and a story filled with revenge and lore, but also access to an alternate ending. So let's defy the Golden Order and find pity for those who live in death as we complete Fia's questline. Quick disclaimer, I will be mentioning multiple other quest steps from Sorcerer Rogier, the Hunter of the Dead, and Ranni the Witch. While I won't cover every single step to catch up with their quests in this video, their own quest videos are coming very soon, so be sure to subscribe so you can be notified and support the channel. Now then, we can first meet Fia at the Round Table Hold, and oddly enough, you can start her quest at almost any time, as the main quest event to move her from this location comes after defeating the Fire Giant and committing treason. Fia will be located in the furthest room to the east, sitting on a bed. Introducing herself and explaining her duty, she offers you comfort in her embrace. Should you choose to be held by her, you'll start her quest and receive a Baldachin's blessing, but unfortunately, you'll also get a sneaky debuff as well. Most players wouldn't even notice, but after being held by Fia, you receive a 5% health debuff. This is directly tied to the Baldachin's blessing you received, which can be consumed for 10 FP to gain 35% physical damage negation and 34% poise for 15 seconds. And once the buff expires, it will also remove the health debuff, so it's not too big of a deal as long as you remember to use it. Once you're done being held, you can consume the blessing and go reload the area by resting at the Table of Lost Grace. Now we can head back into her room to be held once more. This time she'll have an option to talk in secret. Doing so will cue dialogue about her purpose, origins, and desires. And when she's finished holding you, don't forget to use the blessing, because now we've got some work to do. We'll have to clear out Stormveil Castle, not only the main dungeon area, but also the zone underneath to progress Rogier's questline. With the ulcerated tree spirit slain, we can find a bloodstain to interact with in the room ahead, and see an unfortunate event unfold for poor Rogier. Returning to the Round Table Hold, we can find Rogier on the balcony and chat with him about the corpse found under Stormveil. He'll tell us of the Night of the Black Knives, which resulted in Godwyn the Golden being killed, and eventually triggering the Shattering. This will allow us to progress Fia, whose reward will actually help out Rogier's quest. Letting her hold you will allow us to reveal some juicy gossip, and she'll tell you of her conversations with Rogier while between the sheets. Wanting to assist him, she gives us the Knifeprint clue, which indicates the location of the black Knifeprint Rogier had mentioned. Although rather crude, the map does show a minor Erd tree as well as a tower, with the target being some catacombs found within a ravine. This, to no surprise, is the Black Knife Catacombs located in Liurnia of the Lakes. Inside, after riding a guillotine blade up to a hidden corridor and dispelling an illusory wall, we have a boss fight against a Black Knife assassin in some tight quarters. Once defeated, you'll receive the Assassin Cerulean Dagger Talisman, which restores 15 FP on critical strikes, as well as the Black Knifeprint. Returning the Knifeprint to Rogier, he'll ask to have some time with it. Just rest at the table and head back out to the balcony to get it back from him and hear what he's discovered. Leaving the details for you to hear from Rogier yourself, we'll jump to what we care about in this video, heading back over to Fia. Letting her hold you will allow you to talk about Rogier. Commending you for your assistance, she rewards you with a sacrificial twig. For those of you who haven't seen one of these yet, the sacrificial twig is a talisman that's lost on death in place of your runes. Personally, I find them useful when deciding to revisit a boss at a later time. Just put one of these on, pass through the fog wall, grab your runes, and get stomped out again. When you respawn at Grace, you'll have all of your runes, but an empty talisman slot and one less twig. Our next quest step will require you either defeat General Radahn or rest at a site of grace in Altus Plateau. Once you've done either of those, we can head back to the Round Table Hold and enter Fia's embrace. This time, she'll have a favor to ask of us. Giving us the weathered dagger, she asks us to find its owner and return it to them. Our only hint will come from its description, which tells us the dagger is made of intertwined gold and silver. And the only character I can think of with gold and silver intertwined is none other than Dee, Hunter of the Dead. Sitting at the Table of Lost Grace, we can give Dee the dagger, which he'll seem curious about, but ensure us that he'll return it to its owner. Reloading the area, we won't find Dee or Fia in their usual locations. Instead, there'll be a new area opened up found north of the room Hugh and Rodrika are in. I do want to give a warning at this point since there will be spoilers for both Dee and Fia's questlines. So if you want to experience this for yourself, I'll give you a few seconds to skip to the next chapter. Now for the rest of you, we'll enter the room to see Fia standing over Dee's dead body, desecrated by Deathblight. After a short monologue, she disappears, with a warning to not disturb the body of Godwyn. With her fading away, we can loot Dee's bell bearing and the twinned armor set from his corpse. From this point forward, Fia will no longer be found in the Round Table Hold. And as I mentioned earlier, if you've beaten the Fire Giant and committed treason, this is where the questline will pick up for you, effectively skipping everything we've done up until this point. To find Fia, we'll have to travel underground to the Deeproot depths. This zone technically has 2 entrance points, but since one of them requires us to delve very deeply into the subterranean shunning grounds within the royal capital of Leyndell, we'll go over the easier route. The quote-unquote easier route requires that we defeat General Radahn, freeing the stars and opening up access to the eternal city of Nokron. If you've yet to check out Nokron, you should definitely watch my Things Not to Miss in Nokron video to be sure to find all the important items it has to offer, as well as an item needed for Ranni's questline, which will come into play a bit later in this video. Head down the crater and progress through until you reach the ancestral wood Site of Grace. From here, we can head north beyond some spirit jellyfish and off the cliff due north to find the aqueduct facing cliff Site of Grace. Continuing forward, drop down, go through the building to the north, beyond the distressed NPC, and up the steps to face off against the twin Valiant Gargoyles. Once defeated, you'll get a couple weapons, and in the distance, access to the Great Waterfall Basin Site of Grace. From the Grace, we can see a coffin to the west, and interacting with it will transport us up to the Deeproot depths. I will have a Things Not to Miss video coming very soon on this zone, but for now, we'll go west across the roots, and north through the water to pick up the zone map in a gazebo, and then head west again to find the nameless Eternal City Site of Grace. From here, we'll have to mount Torrent and run up the route to the east, beyond the broken statue spitting fire, and transfer to the route on our left after turning to the east again. And we'll follow that up onto a cliffside to find the Across the Roots Site of Grace. Heading north, we'll enter a large open area plagued with deathroot and flies. Sitting at the base of the roots ahead lies a giant malformed twisted body. As we approach closer, a black cloud will appear and will be challenged by one of Fia's champions. Once they're defeated, another black cloud will appear and Sorcerer Rogier will attack us. Defeating our former friend, we'll have one final phase with 3 black clouds appearing this time, summoning Lionel the Lionhearted and 2 more of Fia's champions. It is worth noting that if playing online, Fia's champions are chosen at random from any loadout of a character that has been held by Fia, so good luck. Once you've defeated all 5 of these foes, you'll receive the sorcery Fia's Mist and unlock the Prince of Death's Throne Site of Grace. Requiring 23 intelligence and 18 faith, this will cost 25 FP to release a Mist of Deathblight in front of you, which can be charged to increase its range. As for its uses, PvP and PvP alone. There's only one sole enemy in this game that this will work on, and that's the silver tears that specifically transform into Tarnished. All other enemies in Elden Ring are immune to Deathblight. As for its effects on Tarnished, players hit will receive 20 Deathblight buildup per tick, and this value is unaffected by the Prince of Death staff, regardless of it being a death sorcery. If you have the patience to dedicate to this in PvP, you can certainly make it work, but outside of that, for most players, this is unfortunately just not a usable sorcery. With her champions defeated, we can meet Fia to the northeast of the Grace, where she'll interrogate us of our intentions. She gives you a choice to kill her, but to complete the questline, we'll tell her we came to be held instead. Receiving a Baldachin's blessing per usual, she'll discuss another Hallowbrand other than Godwin's that exists, and her need for it. This Hallowbrand is where most people fall off of Fia's questline, since the Hallowbrand referred to comes from completing a good chunk of Ranni's questline. In quick summation, after defeating General Radahn and opening Nokron, you'll have to enter the heart of the city and loot the Fingerslayer blade from beneath the giant corpse, then deliver it to Ranni. If you've gotten to this step, then you've received the Carian inverted statue from her. With the statue in hand, we'll head to the Carian study hall found to the east of Liurnia. Entering the hall, we'll place the statue on the pedestal near the globe and flip the whole place on its lid. Head inside and fight your way through the hordes of crawling hands, making sure to keep an eye on Preceptor Miriam, who's just as annoying this go-around as she was before the tower was flipped. Once defeated, she'll reward you with the sorcery Lucidity. Requiring 17 intelligence and costing 10 FP to cast, Lucidity will remove all sleep or madness buildup, and on top of it being a short cast, it can be used while in motion. After you've descended the chandeliers and wooden beams to the elevator, taking it all the way down, exit heading east and open an upside down door to reveal a divine tower as well as the Liurnia Tower Bridge Site of Grace. Looking east, everything seems clear, but of course things are never that easy. About halfway across the bridge, a Godskin noble of the thick variety will appear and block your way. Defeating him will reward you with the Godskin noble set, allowing you to cosplay your favorite roly-poly foes. Once across the bridge, we can open the tower, ride the elevator, grab the grace, and run around the steps up to the top. At the center of the tower, where normally one of the Great Runes resides, lay the discarded body of Ranni the Witch, and on her corpse, we can retrieve the Cursemark of Death and the Stargazer Heirloom Talisman, which will grant us 5 points to intelligence when equipped. There is so much lore to delve into regarding the Cursemark and the Knight of the Black Knives, but that's for a whole other video. Now that we have the Hallowbrand, we can return to Fia and finally finish up her quest. Back at the Prince of Death's throne, we can deliver the Cursemark and allow Fia to complete her master plan. Claiming you as the champion of those who live in death, she holds you tightly, rewarding you with a radiant Baldachin's blessing. This enhanced blessing will cost 20 FP to use, granting 35% physical damage reduction and 45% poise for 70 seconds, but for only one use, and it can be stored in your chest, as it's not tied to any health reducing debuffs like the standard blessing is. After her little squeeze, she'll talk to us in secret again, explaining that she's to lay with Godwin and conceive a child in the form of a rune. Yep, I am just as skeeved as you guys are, but hey, this whole questline has been questionable at best. We can then rest at the Site of Grace and speak with her one last time, where she bids us farewell, ensuring us that this is, somehow, the right thing to do, and thanking us for providing enough vitality to her through our hugs to make this possible. Yay. Once she's released you, use the regular Baldachin's blessing to cleanse the debuff, and rest at the Site of Grace. Loading in this time will reveal Fia lying against Godwin's body, where we can approach her and touch her to enter the deathbed dream. This is no dream at all, but instead much closer to a nightmare, as you load into a boss fight against Lichdragon Fortissax. This devastating boss will use Deathblight-inducing lightning and Red Dragon lightning, which can really make visibility a challenge at times. and of course the lightning will travel through the water, so you have to be careful of where you're standing. Once you've defeated this legendary foe, you'll receive the Remembrance of the Lichdragon. Taking this Remembrance to Enya at the Round Table Hold rewards you with your choice of incantation, Death Lightning or Fortissax's Lightning Spear. Both of these are Dragon Cult incantations, and as such, are boosted by the Gravelstone seal for 15% increased damage. Death Lightning will require 47 faith, 2 of your spell slots, and cost 28 FP to cast. This incantation will release 9 bolts of lightning around you, afflicting those hit with Deathblight buildup and leaving behind clouds of Deathblight for a few seconds. This can be charged, increasing the number of strikes to 13 and doubling the duration the clouds linger, but it does have quite a long charge time. Similar to Fia's Mist, the Deathblight portion of the spell will not affect any foes in the game, save for those silver tiers I mentioned earlier, and your fellow Tarnished. However, the buildup isn't terrible, at 50 on a direct hit and 30 per tick from the lingering clouds. As for the lightning portion, which still makes this incantation usable, the damage isn't terrible. When used on a character with no lightning boosts and only the seal, it hit pretty hard. However, there's of course a major downside to this. Its consistency. The range you have to be at to make this spell hit consistently is extremely risky, and the long cast time does not help its case. Sometimes you'll clear a pack of enemies, sometimes you'll fail to hit anyone. Overall, for PvP players, this can definitely work, if you manage to get lucky with the direct strikes of course. And for PvE players, there's honestly just better options for lightning-based incantations, especially within the Dragon Cult archetype. I do want to take a second and thank Big Bob Sandwich, whoever you are, for unknowingly assisting me in testing this unbearably inconsistent spell, even if you did teabag me after our first encounter. Now for our second reward choice, Fortissax's Lightning Spear, which will require 46 faith and cost 35 FP to cast. I mentioned a moment ago that there are better lightning spells within the Dragon Cult archetype, and this is one of them. Causing you to hover off the ground, you conjure 2 giant lightning spears that not only deal damage when being stabbed down, but also send waves of red lightning out in multiple directions. This is similar to Death Lightning in regard to the distance it's most effective, but that's where the similarities fall off. Each of the spears are very strong, dealing solid damage to both health and poise on hit, even staggering smaller foes. And the hovering allows you to dodge certain attacks entirely, causing the close range factor to be much less of a challenge. Personally, I find this is the best reward choice from the Remembrance for most players, as the utility is so much higher than Death Lightning and the damage is much more consistent. Exiting the dream, we can return to Fia, who will be slumped next to Godwyn's body, with the mending rune of the Death Prince floating above her to loot. To grab the last bit of loot at the end of this questline, we'll have to reload and approach Fia to discover that she's died, leaving behind her hood and robes for us to loot. And with that, Fia's questline has been completed in its entirety, and all that's left now is to enter the Erd Tree, defeat the final boss, and use the mending rune of the Death Prince to get the Age of the Duskborn alternate ending. I hope this guide has helped you make your way through this convoluted, twisty quest, and if it has, please leave a like or a comment on this video. If you'd like to support the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button, and don't forget to keep an eye out for the rest of my upcoming quest videos. As always, I'm Stonebear13, and thank you for watching.